Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 387. Yes, the spoilers are out almost a week early. Yes, I am very much slow on the ball, so let's just dive right into the spoilers and talk about this chapter. For starters, the title of this chapter is called Congealed, which makes sense with the context of what we're going to be getting later on in the chapter. And to start off, the chapter begins with Getten and Compress talking in a prison. Getten says that Himura family blood is thick and they were a clan with many different lineages, all very rich and prideful, but the more the age of quirks advanced, the more prestige they lost. He says that they didn't want their blood to get mixed to other families, and Compress comments that it's a mix of family pedigree and quirk discrimination. Spinner told him about this. As a result, they started getting married to distant relatives and almost went extinct. The last desperate measure was to sell those from the main line to arrange marriages, like what happened with Rei. The other lineages slowly disappeared, and Getten, who is also a Himura, was taken in and raised by Registro. Getten then says that with the passing of the generations, quirks have become more complex, and sometimes even the user themselves is not fully aware of their genetics and the full extent of their power. He then asks Compress to tell his story since they have plenty of time. So this is very interesting. For starters, this is what most likely what Horikoshi was talking about when it came to Compress coming back into the story later on. And what's also interesting is the context that we get with Getten and how he most likely came to the point that he is right now, but also explains how Rei got to this point and really show a connection that they both had, which is what many people believed was going to happen. Many people believe that Rei as well as Getten are related, and it is confirmed in the text spoiler. So that is cool, and I would like to get a little bit more into like what this means and how it ties more into like Japanese culture when it comes to pedigrees, clans, and lineage, but we cannot really focus on that. That's something that I will save for more of the review. So yeah, this is something that I'm glad that we're tackling, and we're not forgetting the quirk discrimination that we saw earlier in this entire story, and that it's most likely not going to be a one-time thing with Shoji, and we're still going to be focusing on it a little bit more later on. But what we get next in the text spoilers is that we cut over to Endeavor and Dabi's fight and how they are now 800 meters away from Gunga. Endeavor hears the news about Dabi's impending explosion and realizes that not only the civilians will be hit, but also the heroes who are trying to contain Toga's clones. He is exhausted and extremely hurt due to the fight against All for One, but Dabi goes straight to him shouting, "Look at me, Dad." Endeavor visualizes Kid Toya saying, "Look what I can do now," while smiling, but what comes next is a giant fire punch. Flame pillars come out of the ground, and Endeavor asks him to put out the fire, but Toya just keeps shouting, "Look at me," and "Let's play Natsu." Endeavor realizes that he is barely able to think anymore and wonders how he's still alive with such hot flames. He extends his hand towards Dabi's chest and starts thinking to himself, there are two kinds of phenomena when someone is close to death: awakening an already existing ability like what happened to Bakugo in the previous war, or developing a brand new type of ability. And that's what happened to Toya. He has ice coming out of his chest. He inherited Rei's quirk. Endeavor begins to remember everything that happened and says that it's all his fault. He intended to go on living to pay for what he has done, but now ... So this is another interesting part of the chapter. First of all, it confirms that Dabi did awaken his quirk. That is something new that we didn't know, and this chapter pretty much reveals that the reason why Dabi is still able to go as far as he can is because he has somehow been using an ice quirk to maintain his heat and firepower while also condensing the heat in his body. So that's something else that we need to really discuss more in detail, but this isn't something that is very surprising due to the fact that we do know that Dabi, aka Toya, had ice resistance, so he already had at the very least the idea or the ability to manipulate ice and be resistant to ice within inside of him, but we're once again just building upon the idea of what it means for a quirk to awaken and how most likely a quirk can awaken. But we also get to see that Endeavor is pretty much about to reach the end, potentially, of its life, as well as potentially the end of this Todoroki family subplot. And Endeavor is beginning to learn a little bit more about how poorly and horribly everything went, and how he's willing to sacrifice his life if it means to pretty much just atone or repent or do whatever it needs to be done for what he did to Toya. And going into the final part of the text spoilers, we just have now he understands that Toya will not stop repeating his mistakes. He will keep hurting others. He has failed to take care of Toya, and now that's the consequence. Endeavor says that he will not let his son die alone and won't let him involve anyone else in his revenge. Endeavor then holds Dabi and begins to fly. He takes advantage of his son's flames to propel them as high as possible, but the heat causes him to start losing consciousness. When all seems lost, Rei appears beside the two and start to use her ice on Dabi. End of chapter. So this part of the text spoilers really caused a little bit of controversy, but it all makes sense within the context of the story and where everyone was located prior. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the review, but pretty much what is happening is that Rei isn't necessarily flying in the air with the hero Endeavor and the villain Toya Dabi, but that she is still relatively on the floor and was able to more or less hitch a ride and be able to, if they are flying up in the air, flying on top of Endeavor and trying to cool him off, as well as potentially freezing Dabi. But yeah, this is something very interesting, and it really shows that potentially what's going to be happening is that either both Endeavor or one of the other is going to die. I think most likely Toya is about to die, and the real up in the air idea of what's going to happen is whether or not Endeavor will die, and also the idea and the concept of redemption and whether or not Toya will be redeemed. And going into more of this in the review, but just to give my thoughts here, I think that he will be redeemed in a way of being saved, not necessarily repenting for everything that he does or did, or that all will be forgiven, but that he will no longer pursue the life of being a villain right before potentially he dies. And I'll elaborate that a little bit more in the review proper, but yeah, this is all I really have to say for the spoilers for right now. This is going to be a very quicker video due to the fact that it is something that I was not very much prepared for, but all I can really hope for is that you enjoyed the spoilers and you got a lot out of it. So let me ask you, what you think of the spoilers for this week? Did you like them? Did you dislike them? Do you think that this is going to be a fitting end for the Todoroki family feud that has been going on in the story? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!